West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
So the argument from the Federalist Society, the anti-abortion right, at least some of them, for overturning Roe v. Wade was and has been that Roe wrongly took the issue of abortion rights away from the people, and that the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe then returned the democratic process to its rightful place and to the people in the states. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, in his concurring opinion, stated that argument quite simply. He wrote, the Dobbs decision, quote, properly leaves the question of abortion for the people in the democratic process. Through that democratic process, the people and their representatives may decide to allow or limit abortion. Now, as poll after poll has shown, the people aren't that interested in bans on abortion, the kinds that have come in the wake of the Dobbs decision. Abortion bans are really incredibly unpopular. And so Republicans and conservatives have been using all sorts of increasingly anti-democratic subterfuge to have their way on banning abortion over the objections of the majority of their own voters. Take North Carolina, for example, right? Republicans in the state legislature recently gained a supermajority when this woman, Tricia Cotton, a Democrat who ran on abortion rights and co-sponsored a bill to codify Roe in the state's constitution, inexplicably switched parties. And she gave them a supermajority, and then conservatives and Republicans then used their new veto-proof supermajority to pass an abortion ban in North Carolina. Over the objections of the electorate, it polled pretty poorly, and over the veto of the governor, who's a Democrat and was democratically elected statewide. So that's North Carolina. Now, here's what's happening in Ohio right now. That state's 6-week abortion ban is currently tied up in court. Its 22-week ban is still in effect. There's a coalition of organizations that are currently collecting hundreds of thousands of signatures to put the question of a constitutional amendment to enshrine reproductive rights in the state's constitution on the ballot in November. The people, right, voting. Or in Justice Kavanaugh's words, to leave the question of abortion for the people in the democratic process. Similar efforts to support abortion rights have been very successful, even in states that are pretty conservative, like Kentucky. And Ohio Republicans and anti-abortion activists know this. So what they're trying to do is take the decision out of the hands of the majority of Ohio voters. They introduced their own constitutional amendment that would raise the ballot initiative threshold that has been in place for, get this, over 100 years, from a simple majority of 50% plus one to 60%. And Republicans are now trying to do this and get it done before that pro-abortion rights constitutional amendment can get on November's ballot. Meaning they want to put their own anti-democratic proposal up for a vote during a special election in August. Even though Republicans in Ohio themselves recently passed a law outlawing the majority of August special elections, not to mention a bipartisan group of Ohio election officials formally voted to oppose a Republican bill because they don't want to run a statewide election in August. The Republicans' play here is being challenged in court. But it's clear what's going on here, right? A maneuver designed explicitly to motivate hardcore anti-abortion proponents to come out in the dead of summer in a low turnout election so then they can move the goalposts and make it nearly impossible for a simple majority of Ohioans to decide to secure abortion rights in their state. No one has been chronicling this movement of anti-democratic, anti-majoritarian politics in states more than David Pepper. He's the author of Laboratories of Autocracy, A Wake-Up Call from Behind the Lines, and the new book, Saving Democracy, A User's Manual for Every American. He's also the former chair of the Ohio Democratic Party, and he joins me now. Good to have you here.
Great to be with you, although it makes my blood boil to hear that summary.
It is really, it's almost, I mean, it's not comical because the stakes are high, but it's so, the sort of manifest pretext behind the whole thing always just strikes me.
It's outrageous. I mean, the whole sequence. And keep in mind, this legislature itself is a result of multiple violations of Supreme Court orders that this map is itself gerrymandered. So their legitimacy is already in question. Right. This is an unconstitutional map that led to these guys in the first place. So we're piling lawlessness on top of lawlessness over and over again. And this is what you get when that happens.
Right, because it's one of these states, it's not quite as bad as Wisconsin, North Carolina, but it's in the ballpark where you've got a state that's it's a pretty Republican state at this point. It's a +7 state, +8 in presidential elections. But you've got enormous majorities, right, in both houses because they set those gerrymanders.
They would not have had the votes to approve this measure a couple weeks ago without the illegal gerrymander they're living within. So that's just one other level of lawlessness.
So they've got the gerrymander, then they use that supermajority to put this on the ballot. They're going to put this on the ballot. Are they honest about why they're doing this? Like when they give the argument for why suddenly it has to be a 60% threshold.
No, it's a joke. I mean, they're saying they need to protect the Constitution. For the first time in 100 years, they have to protect the Constitution months before what you just described, a citizen-led ballot initiative to actually have the people vote on abortion access. By the way, when the Supreme Court came out with that opinion, it was gaslighting from the very beginning.
Sure, yeah.
They know that most of these states are gerrymandered. They do not reflect the people. Kansas showed that with its referendum last August. And these legislators know it. That's why every poll in Ohio shows that about close to 60%, and that's why that's such an important number, close to 60% of Ohioans support Roe v. Wade in general abortion access. Almost none support abortion bans, no exceptions, that sent that 10-year-old girl to Indiana who was raped. These guys know that, and as you've described, it's so blatant. They're moving the goalpost. But let's be clear. Now, I hope this comes out this way. I'm not sure it will. They themselves made a special election in August illegal. Right. And they did not revoke that law.
Okay. So this is another great layer on top of this. So basically, they're on this race, right? They see the abortion rights advocates are going to get this ballot initiative in November. Right. So they're like, well, we want to raise the threshold to change the rules of the game before they can get there in November. So we have to have our election here in August.
Correct.
The dead of August, right? Now, the county election officials, a lot of them were Republican, are like, what the hell are you doing? We don't want this, right? But they have already passed a law saying you can't have special elections in August?
Yeah, and they tried to get the votes to repeal that law, but they didn't have the votes, so they just stopped trying to repeal it, and they're just saying we should have it anyway. By the way, the Secretary of State announced to those elections officials months ago the great victory of getting rid of these August elections. It was a bipartisan victory. The author of the August election idea himself said this was a career-long goal of mine to get rid of August elections. Months later, they can't repeal it, but they still demand an election on a date where it's currently illegal to have a statewide special election in Ohio.
So this is where we get back to these sort of layers of anti-democratic. So that challenge to the legality of this August 8th election is going to go to a state.
It's the Ohio Supreme Court.
And how are we doing over in the Ohio State Supreme Court?
Unfortunately, we had our Wisconsin moment a couple of years ago. We actually got ourselves an independent court. Then they changed those rules and added party label to the ballot, moved those races up to the top, and now they have themselves. Oh,
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
right.
There's another one.
The court changed hands.
It did. We had a moderate Chief Justice who was a longtime Republican who, with 3 Democrats, voted against every gerrymandered map. But in the meantime, they switched the rules of how we elect justices, like they did in North Carolina, and then violated for a year all the court orders. As I always say, if we saw this in another country, we would be saying, my God, you have no rule of law. Well, that's Ohio right now in 2023.
And it's not just Ohio. I mean, we have seen similar stuff happen in Wisconsin. We've seen it happen in North Carolina. There's proposals in Missouri right now. I mean, your first book, which I read and is excellent, really does a really good job of talking about this. I mean, the flip side of it, which I think has been somewhat successful in Ohio, is there really has been mobilization by voters and Ohioans to be like, this is not okay.
It reminds me of 2011, the anti-collective bargaining bill that we rescinded. Right now, you're seeing it's just so over the top. It's so blatantly dishonest. And you even have, former Governor Taft, who was a former Secretary of State, John Kasich, former Attorneys General, all saying that this is outrageous. So I hope that we're seeing a bill. The Libertarian Party came out against this. It's very conservative groups who themselves want to bring things to the ballot are saying this is too much. So my hope is that, and by the way, one other thing, backdrop. This is the most corrupt state house in the country, according to the FBI. The Speaker of the House, who had to resign, will be sentenced in June for the largest bribery scandal in the history of Ohio. So this is against the backdrop of corruption. That trial is still playing out. And so a state house normally would respond with reform, but they're responding, grab more power from the voters, more power from themselves. So my hope is there's enough of buildup that we crush this thing in August. And one of the things that's really important here is if this passes in Ohio, they do operate as laboratories of autocracy. Let's be clear.
They'll do it
Other
everywhere.
states will do it. So we can all do the country a favor.
Make
exactly.
It 80. I mean, right. I mean, this
so
is
crush it in Ohio. So the billionaire, there's such big Illinois billionaire backing the whole thing.
Is Browner? Is this?
I don't remember. His name is Uline or something.
Oh yeah, the Uline.
Uline.
Yeah.
I want him to feel like this was such a monumental waste of money. It's not worth doing anywhere else. It's too much. It's too much of a power grab. And that's, again, if this passes, it's coming everywhere that they can do this. If it fails, then I think we make progress beyond Ohio. It's that important.
It is Wednesday, the 24th of May of 2023. And you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious the little Yorkie is our hostess, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? They're everywhere. Yeah, is it a Christo-fascist takeover of America? I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. It could just be the abject greed of a bunch of moneyed burgermeisters, because that's what a burgermeister is, moneyed. I know it's redundant, but here we go. Who think that they have the secret of the universe because look at all the money they have amassed. Yeah, that's proof, isn't it? And I want to know what it is about money that tends to make people tend to go a little bit overboard on the stateless actor behavior. And then in the midst of that stateless actor mode, they become fascists. Or is this a chicken and egg thing? They always were fascists. Might be. I don't know. So, we have a story about DeSantis and obliquely about Musk. And it has nothing to do with the announcement of DeSantis' presidency being blasted on Twitter. God, yeah, that's great. So is Elon, whatever you pronounce it, is Mr. Musk gonna give Ronnie a little bit of help with some of the data that he's got laying about there on Market Street? I sleep here. I'm a hard worker. Oh, F off. Ah, boy. How quickly we fall. And it's really quite amazing, too. You know, they, with a capital T, sure made a decision, and they said, let's blitzkrieg this motherfucker to hell. And here we are. We're not completely in hell. We're, I don't know, some level of purgatory. Yeah, it's so Dante-esque, too. I mean, we actually have fire and brimstone. Jeez. All this time we thought it was metaphor. No. We're talking actual, literal fire and brimstone. Metaphorically speaking, because fire and brimstone in this context is, the pulpit. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests, pastors, I don't know, cult figures, egomaniac psychopaths influencing people to, I don't know, give them a bunch of money and therefore they have the secret to the universe. Okay. We have a story about hating the rich, too. We don't hate the rich. Not really. Not all the rich. There's some nice rich people, of course. But I got to tell you, there's some rich folks that give, rich folks a bad name. I wonder why that is. No wonder they want to get rid of literature. Because it seems like, people have been writing about the bad rich people for a long time, and I guess making us mistake the fact that there's some really good rich people too. But they have to get rid of literature because literature makes them look bad, and then in the process, getting rid of literature just proves that they were bad to begin with. So I don't know. Everybody wishes they were rich. I get around it by convincing myself I'm rich in experience. Oh, yeah. Totally rich in experience. Put that in my pocketbook. Yeah, no bank's going to bank on it. Oh, yeah. I rode on the top of railway trains with campesinos all over Mexico. Really? Jeez. Get in line. All right. Yeah, you could do that back in the day. I used to hop on a train just over the border to get to Guadalajara, and it would be so ungodly hot in these stifling, stuffy rail cars, and they would be empty, and everybody was on top of the railroad cars. So I got up on there, too. I mean, it seemed like when in Rome, Or when on the train to Guadalajara, get on top of the roof when it's so godly hot you can't breathe. You could do that back in the day. I don't know if you can now. Lots of stuff we were able to do back in the day. Yeah, get a backpack with a sleeping bag and all of that. Guitar. I carried a portable typewriter and hitchhiked across America. Remember when you could do that? Yeah. Avoided the South, though, because I had long hair at the time. And even then, we were, sort of like warned off by certain civic groups like, the NAACP, that, they're killing white do-gooders down here. What they did to the Freedom Riders. Yeah, I wasn't going to put myself in that position. Avoid the South when you got your thumb out. Maybe even in a car. I guess we played enough of, when I was with Cottonmouth, we played enough, southern states of sorts on our extended stadium tour opening act thing. That was kind of fun. I was young then, 19, going on 20. The prime of my life. Get out of here. I hadn't even stopped growing yet. Grew another 1.5 inches. Yeah, 19 to 27. What the hell? Late bloomer, they say. So, looks like we're going to hell in a handbasket, and it's only Wednesday, hump day. Jeez. Yeah, Ron DeSantis and Musk. Ron DeSantis going to announce on Twitter. That's great. Okay. Yeah. I'm not watching Spaces, Twitter Spaces. Is that a thing? I guess, yeah, it must be, because I get announcements, notifications about it, and maybe I should create a space. Wow, I always thought I had one already, but not specific to Twitter, apparently. Got to get a blue check for that, and you know what? I am not doing it. Yeah, I told you before that Netroots Radio is, we're bugging out. I might stick around a little bit because that's how I am. I like to be the martyr. No, I don't. But I like to stick around for a little bit, and then we'll see. We'll see. You never know what one might say to get themselves kicked out. Which reminds me, this Amanda Gorman story. Now, she did indeed compose the poem. She didn't just recite it. Banned in Florida because one parent who can't even write a complete sentence. You would think that if people are going to get rid of literature and poetry or whatnot, that they can at least write legibly. And I don't mean just, maybe they should have typed out their little request. But I'm speaking actual sentence structure. I mean, can't they at least construct a legible sentence? That should be a rule. But no. No, one parent can determine whole swaths of literature. The inaugural poem to the President of the United States is being divisive. Who comes up with that? I'll tell you. Divisive, mofo, seditious, insurgent, secessionists, to put it mildly, and nicely, too, because I have some four-letter words attached to that, and I already went through the mother effer already, and I don't know how that came out. It just did. So early in the morning, where we are. Anyway. It's enough to make you blurt out mother effer, complete with a CK, early in the morning. Just doesn't sound or resonate nicely among the quiet of the dew. It's not actually quiet, but, because the birds are chirping, but you know what I mean. We'll call it the tranquility of the dew. There. Yeah, that's nicer. Poetic. Okay. Have I gotten it off my chest yet? I don't think so. I think we'll just have to make do. Hold it in. Let it fester. No, we won't. Because then we go off and nothing gets done properly and efficiently. Because we got our work cut out for us, don't we? They are blitzkrieging us with their brown shirt lone wolves. Target backing down. Did you see that? I'm sorry, I don't have it off my chest yet. Target backing down. Oh, we're not going to have any LGBTQ specific merchandise for Pride awareness because we've been terrorized by a bunch of lone wolf brown shirts. Well, they hunt in packs. Lone wolf brown shirts hunt in packs. Everybody knows it. Nazi tattoos. Oh, we don't know what their intentions are when they massacred a bunch of people. Nazi tattoos. Nazi flags on a truck trying to come in and says, I'm going to kill the president. Oh, that's Antifa trying to make us look bad. Yeah, if you think that's making you look bad, I think you're a effing Nazi. Do I have it off my chest yet? No, I don't. Let us channel that energy instead and give you what we have in store for you here in the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy salon-like virtual world that we have created. I don't know in our mind here. Anyway, all that aside, starting at the top there, after gerrymandering the hell out of the state, Ohio Republicans are now trying to change century-old state rules to keep abortion rights off the November ballot. This November. All right. On the rest of the menu here, it's Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court will consider a plan to make power plants pay for greenhouse gas emissions. Well, that's a nice thing for them to do. Good. And this is balanced out by the Republican-controlled Texas legislature passed a bill to eliminate the position of the Harris County elections chief, the Democratic stronghold of Harris County, that now allows a state to take over the election if it deems there is a pattern of problems. Like Democratic candidates getting elected. They can't do that. We've gerrymandered the state to hell. Wow, Ohio, Texas, sounds like a pandemic. And the college student who was banned from Twitter for posting the real-time movements of Elon Musk's jet now has Ron DeSantis' new aircraft in his sights. Who is paying for Ron DeSantis' jet? Well, we at least get to see where he's going, back and forth, to and fro. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Cambodian land activists have been arrested for inciting farmers to hate the rich. Now, you know I've always said that eating the rich is not cannibalism. Why? Because it's only cannibalism if you eat something that has a soul. Now, that's not hating the rich, okay, but it is a justification for eating them. I wonder if I can get away with that in Cambodia. Probably not. And as a counterpoint, the money laundering trial against former Panama President Martinelli has begun in Panama City. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Page at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page to the left from that chat room link is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and if you could maybe afford to send us what you might spend on, I don't know, how about an espresso type coffee drink, for instance? If you could send those funds to us once a month, therefore becoming a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, that recurring Patreon nudge helps us pay our bills and all the other costs incurred running this powerhouse of resistance, because the brown shirts are a goose-stepping in white waiters this time. Yeah, well, they're not just white waiters, but we know what that means. Anyway, your help and generosity helps us, stave off that onslaught, because we can't allow it. We just can't. And also, it helps us fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many years ago. So thank you for your generosity, and we continue to need it. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter while Netroots Radio is still there, but certainly on Mastodon and Spoutable, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom is taking that, and also the Delete Tweet app. Thanks, Tom. No, seriously. We're bugging out, okay? Elon. Anyway, if you would like to follow me on Twitter, Mastodon and Spoutable, do so at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary, not a story, it's a diary, on Daily Codes 10 minutes before showtime, and you can always find all of the show notes and links by going to those diaries there. Even the music show, Musique Sans Frontières, on Sunday nights. Look it up. You can follow the show on Twitter, such as it is, at Cookbook West, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays is by Mark Levy out of the Associated Press. Pennsylvania Supreme Court will take its first crack at whether a governor can force power plant owners to pay for their planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions, or whether he first needed approval from a legislature that refused to go along with the plan. Hanging in the balance is Pennsylvania's effort to become the first major fossil fuel producing state to adopt carbon pricing. Today, Wednesday, the state's highest court will hear arguments on whether a lower court was right to halt Pennsylvania's participation in a multi-state consortium that imposes a price and declining cap on carbon dioxide emissions from power plants. The way the justices react could give hints as to how they might ultimately rule on whether Pennsylvania's participation without legislative approval is constitutional, and it is no small amount of money. Pennsylvania would have raised more than $1 billion had it begun participating in 2022, when former Governor Tom Wolf intended, according to calculations by the Natural Resources Defense Council, a nonprofit environmental advocacy group. It became the central plank in Wolf's plan to fight global warming. Republican lawmakers, fossil fuel interests, industrial power users, and trade unions opposed it, saying it will hurt the state's energy industry and drive up electric bills. Oh no! The case is a political minefield for Governor Josh Shapiro, Wolf's successor and a fellow Democrat, who was endorsed by some of the labor unions that fought Wolf's effort to join the consortium. Shapiro has maintained that he does not support entering the consortium, known as the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. He didn't want to enter it on Wolf's terms, but he continues to fight for it in court, and his top environmental protection appointee told lawmakers in March that joining the consortium is a vehicle that could help meet Shapiro's strong and very aspirational goals to help the environment. Meanwhile, Shapiro has assembled a task force to come up with something better, a task force that meets in secret and includes opponents from organized labor and executives from companies invested in fossil fuels, as well as supporters of carbon pricing. State officials, independent researchers, and environmental advocates say the money reaped by the state through the auction of emission credits can be spent on encouraging the growth of renewable energy and energy conservation. That, they say, would stabilize electric bills or lower them, while cutting greenhouse gas emissions and helping transition workers in fossil fuels into new industries. Paul J. Weber of the AP brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Shaking up election in Texas's largest county, the GOP-controlled legislature yesterday, Tuesday, approved abolishing a position in Harris County that oversees more than 2 million voters around Houston months before the city chooses a new mayor. At the same time, Republicans advanced a separate plan that would also have a singular impact on Harris County, a growing Democratic stronghold, allowing the state to take greater control over elections there if it is determined there is a pattern of problems. The push by the state's GOP majority resurfaced tensions over voting in the Texas capital 2 years after Democratic lawmakers walked out for 93 days in protest of new voting restrictions that also targeted Harris County. At the center of the proposed changes this time is last year's elections in Harris County, where local officials have acknowledged problems that included paper ballot shortages and delayed poll openings. Republican candidates have challenged losses in races across the county. There has been no evidence that the issues affected the outcomes. The elections were run by Harris County's elections administrator, a position created by the county in 2020. The bill headed to Abbott would return elections oversight in the county to the tax assessor and county clerk, which are both elected offices currently held by Democrats. It's not working in Harris County after multiple attempts, Republican State Representative Briscoe Kane, God, I hate that little twerp, said of the county having an elections administrator. The change would take effect on September 1st. For more than an hour in the Texas House, Democrats raised concerns that would not give Harris County enough time to change oversight before November's mayoral election, and accused Republicans of singling out the county because it was shifting away from them. The elections bill approved in the House would not apply to any of Texas's 253 other counties. The Senate must still give final approval this week to the other measure that would allow the Secretary of State to intervene in Houston elections after investigating complaints. David Hamilton of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Jack Sweeney, the 20-year-old college student who was once banned from Twitter for posting the real-time movements of Elon Musk's jet, has a new aircraft in his sights, that of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. On Monday, Sweeney posted his first tweet on the account at DeSantis Jet, which follows the movements of the official Florida jet DeSantis uses for state business. The tracker, like the one he created to follow Musk's private jet, uses public flight information required by aviation authorities. In an interview with the AP, Sweeney said he also plans to track DeSantis' flights on other private aircraft once he can identify them. Like Sweeney's revamped version of his Musk tracker at Elon Jet, the DeSantis Twitter tracker reports movements with a 24-hour delay. That delay complies with a Twitter rule change imposed shortly after the company suspended Sweeney's original Musk tracking account in December. That came not long after the Tesla CEO bought the social media platform for $44 billion, and it's only worth a fraction of that now. In this reporter's opinion, no, that's a fact. Sweeney's Twitter account was later restored. By relying on public data, Sweeney's tracker also sidesteps a Florida law signed by DeSantis on May 11th that requires state law enforcement agencies to keep the governor's travel record secret. Sweeney, who is a student at the University of Central Florida, tracks a variety of other private jets used by politicians, technology tycoons, and celebrities. That list includes Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg, and Taylor Swift and Kim Kardashian. Like his other tracking accounts, Sweeney's DeSantis tracker appears on a variety of social media platforms ranging from Facebook and Instagram to smaller sites as Telegram, Mastodon, and Nostr. His Musk tracker also uses accounts on Blue Sky, a nascent Twitter alternative, and Truth, a Trump-founded social network. Only the Twitter-based trackers feature the 24-hour delay. All right, let's go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Camp Fail. If you've seen the trailer for Hypnotic, you'll think you're in for an action thriller about a detective looking for his missing daughter. You'll be wondering why Liam Neeson isn't starring instead of Ben Affleck. What you get, however, is something way different. And while being led down surprising paths can make for some of moviegoing's most exhilarating rides, how it's done can make or break a pick that's selling that. This one pretty quickly turns weird when Affleck's Detective O'Rourke and his partner investigate a bank robbery that leads to the discovery of a deep state mind control program that its participants call the Division. Just as with plots based around time travel, once you can't be sure that what the characters you're watching or experiencing is real or logically self-motivated, it's off to the races, straining the boundaries between twist and absurdity. Part of the problem here at first seems like the script, but going deeper, it might be that the concept would have been better served by a streaming series where the onion could have been peeled back at a less than 5 layers at a time pace. The proceedings all seem rushed, and while director Robert Rodriguez has proven himself imaginative and resourceful before, too much of the core mind control theme falls to knowing stares between actors, which may be both time and resource efficient but fails to double down on the creepy. All is not lost here, however. There are some nice visual effects a la Inception or Tenet for transitions between reality and what are called hypnotic constructs, and despite the script limitations, the acting is all fine, with kudos to William Fichtner for bringing off the evil Division agent Lev Delray. While Hypnotic has its moments, its mid-credit sequel tease will likely prove to also be from another reality. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
With defamation much in the news, we ask, what exactly is defamation? I'm Bill Newman, and this Civil Liberties Minute is a primer on defamation. The first element of a typical defamation claim, private person versus private person, is that the defendant made a false statement of fact. Second, that false assertion of fact must be communicated or published to other person or persons. Third, the plaintiff, the person claiming to have been defamed, generally must prove that the false statement caused them harm, a lost job, for example, and damage to their reputation in the community where they work or live. A defamatory statement about persons who are not public figures can be made negligently or intentionally. We'll discuss public figures and the First Amendment in another Civil Liberties Minute. A few more facts. Defamation that is written is called libel. Think newspapers, books, or magazines. Defamation that is verbal is called slander. Think radio. Because defamation is a civil action, the standard of proof is a preponderance of the evidence, 50% plus a feather. A plaintiff can win money damages. No one goes to jail. Opinions are not defamatory. They're opinions, unless they embed untrue statements of fact. A defense to defamation is truth. You can say terrible things about another person, and if what you said is true, it's not defamatory. Because in the world of defamation, falsity is the currency of the realm. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because understanding the law can matter, and freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1949. That was the day that a shotgun blast broke through a closed window and struck Victor Reuther as he sat reading a newspaper in his living room. Victor, along with his brothers Walter and Roy, were leaders of the United Auto Workers Union, one of the most powerful forces of the 20th century U.S. labor movement. During the 1930s, the three brothers moved to Detroit and became involved in the hard-fought efforts to bring unions to the Motor City. Victor got a job at the Kesley Hayes Wheel Company. He joined UAW Local 174. During the Flint sit-down strike against General Motors, Victor gave speeches to help rally the strikers. According to Mike Smith of Wayne State University, Victor, quote, had this deep resonating voice. He coupled that with a superb control of the language. And when he got up to give a speech, it was usually a beauty. Victor would go on to become the UAW's education director and international director. Roy took up the role of legislative director. Walter became the union's president. Their union leadership made many enemies for the three Reuther brothers. Walter was the victim of a gunshot attack in 1948 that permanently injured one of his arms. The next year, an unknown would-be assassin took aim at Victor. The blast hit Victor in the face. He lost his right eye, and the bullet smashed his jaw and collarbone. In his memoir, Victor wrote that he told the surgeon, quote, "They can take out my eye and take of an arm or a leg, but please fix up my tongue. I've got a living to make." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I was standing by gate 4 when I heard the people roar. They ain't gonna kick the auto workers around. It's that UAW-CIO.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 63 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high near 80, abundant sunshine throughout the day with winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the low 50s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10, and mainly sunny skies tomorrow with highs in the mid-80s, winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen remains rated very high here in our little hamlet of Rogue River, Oregon. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 22 parts per million. And that daytime UV index is very high once again at level 8, so do take care. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.03 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 90%, so it's gotten humid again. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 70 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 68 and sunny. Rome is 78 and fair. Kyiv is 77 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 63 and clear. Hong Kong is 78 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 61 degrees and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 45 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay because of fog. And New York, New York is 66 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Sopeng Chang and Grant Peck of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. 3 Cambodian land rights activists who are arrested on charges of plotting against the government plan to provoke a peasant revolution by teaching farmers about class divisions between rich and poor, an official said yesterday, Tuesday. Tang Savan, president of the Coalition of the Cambodian Farmer Community and his colleagues, Nel Phep and Tan Hach, were charged Monday by a court in the country's northeast with plotting against the state and incitement to commit a felony, said San Hat of the local rights group Lakado. He said plotting against the government carries a possible prison term of 5 to 10 years, while incitement to commit a felony is punishable by 6 months to 2 years. He described the charges as sending a message of intimidation to civil society groups. The 3 suspects were not available for comment, and their lawyers were not immediately reachable. A senior government official likened their nonviolent activities to what the Communist Khmer Rouge taught peasants 5 decades ago before carrying out their bloody revolution. The arrests in Ratanakiri province came as Cambodia prepares for a general election in July that is certain to return to power the governing Cambodian People's Party of Prime Minister Hun Sen, who has led the country for 38 years with little tolerance for dissent. The opposition Candlelight Party, the sole group posing a credible challenge to the governing party, was not allowed by the National Election Committee to contest the polls and expects a ruling this week on his appeal of that decision. The 3 activists were arrested on May 17th after hosting a workshop in Ratanakiri province about land rights and other issues affecting farmers. The police detained 17 of the workshop's 39 participants, but released all but the 3 who were charged and placed in pre-trial detention on Monday.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Former Panamanian President Ricardo Martinelli was among some 20 people who went to trial Tuesday on money laundering charges as he tries to mount a political comeback ahead of next year's national elections. Martinelli, who had back surgery last week, was not present. One of his lawyers tried twice to stop the proceedings, but Judge Belosa Marquinez dismissed the efforts. The former president has denied wrongdoing. The case, known locally as New Business, dates back to 2017 and concerns the purchasing of a publishing company that owns national newspapers. Prosecutors maintain that through a complex series of foreign money transfers totaling $43 million, companies that had won lucrative government contracts during Martinelli's presidency funneled money to a front group that was then used to purchase the publisher. The front company collecting the money was called New Business. Martinelli is also expected to go to trial later this year in a case related to massive bribes paid by Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht to win government contracts. Martinelli served as Panama's president from 2009 to 2014. He is expected to participate in his party's primaries this July. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.